Commander Sarah Chen stood at the helm of the EDS Artemis, her eyes fixed on the massive holographic display that dominated the bridge. The emergency lights cast an eerie red glow across her face as she studied the approaching signature, a vessel unlike anything humanity had encountered in their centuries of space exploration. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the tension that gripped the bridge crew. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers danced across his console. "Unknown vessel maintains its course, Commander. Energy readings they're off the charts. Nothing in our database matches this signature." The Artemis, Earth's most advanced defensive vessel, suddenly felt small and inadequate. Sarah had served in the Earth Defense Force for 15 years, rising through the ranks to become one of the youngest commanders in the fleet. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for this moment. Multiple energy spikes detected. Rodriguez's voice cracked with urgency. "They're powering up weapon systems." Sarah's mind raced through their options. The Artemis protected the Ganymede colony, humanity's largest settlement outside Earth's orbit. Behind them, 3 million civilians went about their daily lives, unaware of the potential threat that loomed above them. "Open a channel," Sarah ordered. "All frequencies, all languages we know." No response, Commander. "They're either ignoring us or—" The ship shuddered violently. Warning klaxons blared as a beam of intense purple energy sliced through space, missing the Artemis by mere kilometers. The attack hadn't been meant to hit them. It was a warning shot, but one that could have vaporized them instantly. "By the stars," whispered Dr. Emily Watson, the ship's xenobiologist. "The energy output, it's equivalent to a small sun." Sarah's tactical display highlighted the alien vessel's characteristics, a design that seemed to defy physics, with curved sections that appeared to bend light around them. It was beautiful in its terrifying efficiency, a predator among the stars. Multiple smaller craft launching from the vessel, Rodriguez reported. They're heading toward Ganymede." Sarah's decision came instantly. "Initiate Defense Protocol Alpha. Get me a direct line to Earth Command. And bring us about. We're intercepting those craft." The bridge crew moved with practiced precision, but Sarah could see the fear in their eyes. This wasn't like the pirate raids or the occasional skirmish with independent colonists. This was something else entirely. The alien fighters moved with impossible grace, their purple energy weapons carving patterns in space. The Artemis's shields flared bright blue with each impact, but held, barely. "Command responds. Reinforcements are en route. ETA 4 hours. Sarah almost laughed. In 4 hours, there might not be anything left to reinforce. She studied the tactical display, noting how the alien fighters moved in perfect formation, their attacks precise and coordinated. "They're testing us," she realized aloud. "These aren't killing blows. They're analyzing our capabilities." As if confirming her theory, the massive alien vessel shifted position, its movement too smooth for something of its size. New energy signatures bloomed across Sarah's displays. "All hands, brace for impact." The next shot didn't miss. The Artemis's shields buckled under the assault, and Sarah felt the deck plates beneath her feet grow hot. Emergency containment fields snapped into place as hull breaches were detected across multiple decks. Shields at 12%. Rodriguez's voice was tight with controlled panic. "One more hit like that. Launch Probe 7. Sarah ordered suddenly, her mind racing ahead to form a plan. Full passive scan mode, minimal energy signature. Her crew looked confused, but complied. As the small probe silently drifted away from the Artemis, Sarah watched the alien vessel carefully. Its attention remained fixed on them, ignoring the tiny craft. "What do we know about their scanning capabilities?" she asked Dr. Watson. "Based on their energy signatures, they likely rely heavily on active scanning, looking for power sources, weapons signatures, shield harmonics." Sarah nodded slowly. "So they might not notice something that appears dead in space. Lieutenant Rodriguez, prepare to transfer all non-essential power to shields." "Dr. Watson, I need everything you can tell me about their whole composition from our passive scans." As her crew worked, Sarah studied the alien ship's movements. Despite its overwhelming technological superiority, it maintained a methodical, almost cautious approach. There was intelligence behind these actions, not just technology, but strategy. "Commander," Dr. Watson's voice held a note of discovery. "Their hull, it's organic, at least partially. It's like nothing we've ever seen. A fusion of biological and technological components." Sarah's eyes narrowed as pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. A biomechanical ship of unprecedented power, methodical testing of defenses, fighters that moved with perfect coordination. "They're connected," she whispered. "The ship, the fighters, possibly even the crew. They're all part of a single consciousness." The revelation brought both terror and hope. Terror at facing an enemy that could think and act as one, but hope because every system, no matter how advanced, had its limitations. As the alien vessel prepared for another attack, Sarah Chen stood straight, her mind already formulating the desperate plan. They couldn't match this enemy's power, but perhaps they could outsmart it. After all, humanity had survived countless challenges not through superior strength, but through adaptability and unconventional thinking. "All hands," she announced, her voice carrying across the ship's comm system, "prepare for emergency maneuvers. What we do in the next few minutes will determine the fate of not just Ganymede, but possibly Earth itself. Trust me, and trust each other." Chen out. The alien ship loomed before them, its biomechanical form a testament to technology beyond human understanding. But Sarah Chen had learned long ago that understanding wasn't always necessary for victory. Sometimes you just needed the courage to attempt the impossible. The next few minutes would prove whether humanity deserved its place among the stars. All power to forward shields. Sarah's command cut through the chaos on the bridge as the Artemis executed a series of evasive maneuvers that should have torn the ship apart. Warning lights flashed across every console as the inertial dampeners struggled to compensate. "Commander," Rodriguez called out, his voice strained. "Structural integrity is at 60% and falling. We can't keep this up." But Sarah's attention was fixed on the probe's data stream. While the alien vessel's attacks had been devastating, they followed a pattern, a complex one, but a pattern nonetheless. Each blast, each fighter movement, operated with machine-like precision. "Too perfect," she muttered. Dr. Watson, analyze the probe's biological readings of their hull. Look for stress patterns, areas where the organic components show strain. The xenobiologist's fingers flew across her console. The biological components seemed to react to energy expenditure. Each weapon's discharge creates a ripple effect through their hull matrix. It's like watching muscles tense and relax. Sarah's mind raced with the implications. A biomechanical ship would have advantages over traditional designs, but it would also share certain biological limitations. What happens to organic tissue under sustained stress? "It fatigues," Watson replied, her eyes widening with understanding. "Commander, are you suggesting?" Another blast rocked the ship, cutting off her words. The shields flickered dangerously, and the smell of burned circuitry filled the bridge. "Engineering reports they can't maintain shield power much longer," Rodriguez announced. "We need to do something now." Sarah stood from her command chair, her decision made. "Send the probe's data to my tactical display. Rodriguez, plot a course directly toward their flagship. Watson, I need you to calculate the resonance frequency of their hull's biological components." Her crew stared at her in disbelief. "Commander," Rodriguez started, "at this range, their next shot will vaporize us." "No," Sarah said with certainty, "it won't. Because we're about to show them something they've never seen before. Human unpredictability." She opened a channel to engineering. "Chief Morris, I need you to modify our shield harmonics. Instead of deflecting energy, we're going to absorb and redirect it." "Commander, that's not what the shields are designed for," Morris protested. The power feedback could blow out every system we have. Better than being vaporized, Sarah replied. Use the emergency capacitors. When I give the word, channel everything into the forward shields, then reverse the polarity. As her crew worked frantically to implement her plan, Sarah studied the alien vessel. Its biomechanical nature was both its greatest strength and, potentially, its greatest weakness. Like any living thing, it would have evolved to deal with certain threats while remaining vulnerable to others. Watson, what's the status on those resonance calculations? Almost there. But Commander, even if this works, we'll only have one shot, the power requirements alone. One shot is all we need. Sarah's voice carried absolute conviction. Humanity didn't come this far by playing it safe. We survived because we dared to try the impossible. The alien vessel's energy readings spiked again, preparing for what would surely be a killing blow. Sarah watched the numbers climb, waiting for the perfect moment. All hands, brace for impact, she ordered. Morris, shields to maximum. Rodriguez on my mark, take us straight in. Watson, be ready with those frequencies. Time seemed to slow as the alien weapon charged. Sarah could feel the tension on the bridge, the fear mixed with determination. These were Earth's finest, facing an enemy that outmatched them in every conventional measure. But conventional warfare had never been humanity's strong suit. The alien beam lashed out, more powerful than any previous attack. But this time, instead of trying to avoid it, the Artemis turned directly into it. Now, Sarah commanded. The ship shuddered violently as the shields absorbed the massive energy burst. Warning sirens blared as systems redlined across the board. The bridge lights flickered and died, leaving only the emergency lighting and the glow of console screens. Shield polarity reversed. Energy feedback in 3, 2, 1. The Artemis's modified shields released the absorbed energy, but not as a weapon. Instead, it pulsed outward at the exact resonance frequency of the alien vessel's biological components. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The massive ship's perfect movements faltered. Its fighter screen broke formation, their coordinated attacks dissolving into chaos. The biomechanical hull rippled visibly, organic tissues spasming under the unexpected assault. Direct hit, Rodriguez exclaimed. Their weapon systems are powering down. Commander, I think we hurt them. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Not hurt, Lieutenant. We just gave them their first headache. The alien vessel's response was unprecedented. Instead of continuing its attack or retreating, it went completely still. Then, to everyone's surprise, it initiated communication. The bridge's main screen flickered to life, revealing a being unlike anything in Earth's records. Its form seemed to shift between organic and mechanical, much like its ship. But in its eyes, if they could be called eyes, Sarah saw something familiar, intelligence, and perhaps a hint of respect. They're transmitting in multiple formats, Rodriguez reported. One of them matches standard Earth protocols. They want to talk. Sarah straightened her uniform, acutely aware that this moment would be remembered in human history. They had done more than survive an attack. They had earned the attention of a vastly superior species through sheer human ingenuity. Open a channel, she ordered. Let's show them another unique human trait, diplomacy. As she prepared to face this new challenge, Sarah Chen reflected that perhaps this was humanity's greatest strength. Not their technology or their weapons, but their ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to turn desperate situations into opportunities for understanding. The conversation that followed would change the course of human history, all because one ship's crew dared to think differently in the face of overwhelming odds. The alien's image dominated the bridge's main screen, its form continuously shifting between states of matter like quicksilver caught in a magnetic field. Sarah found herself mesmerized by the subtle patterns that rippled across its surface, reminiscent of the biomechanical ship itself. I am Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Ship Artemis, she announced, keeping her voice steady. You've entered human-controlled space and engaged in hostile actions against our vessel. The beam's response came as both sound and light patterns, translated by the ship's computers into comprehensible speech. We are Nexus. You surprised us. The voice was neither male nor female, carrying harmonics that made the bridge's speakers vibrate. No species has ever turned our own energy against us. Fascinating. Sarah noted the use of we instead of I, confirming her theory about their collective consciousness. Your attack threatened millions of civilian lives. We responded to protect them. Civilian? Non-military units. Inefficient. Why maintain separate functions? Unity is strength. The Nexus's form rippled with what might have been curiosity. Yet your disunity proved advantageous. Dr. Watson stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overtaking protocol. Your biomechanical integration is remarkable. Are all your people connected to? Dr. Watson. Sarah cut in sharply, though she shared the scientist's fascination. This was still a first-contact situation with a potentially hostile species. The Nexus's form shifted again, focusing on Watson. Your question reveals understanding. Yes, we are one. Many bodies, one consciousness. Your individuality is alien to us. Your tactics, unpredictable. Interesting. Sarah seized on this opening. Then perhaps we can learn from each other. Our differences don't have to lead to conflict. Learning requires time. Time is danger. Your species. The Nexus paused, its form condensing slightly. Your species spreads quickly. Adapts. Changes. Unpredictable. Danger. Commander, Rodriguez whispered urgently. Their weapon systems are powering up again. Sarah raised her hand, both to quiet Rodriguez and as a gesture to the Nexus. If we're dangerous because we're unpredictable, then attacking us would be illogical. You can't predict how we'll respond. The weapon's signatures fluctuated, then stabilized without firing. The Nexus's form expanded slightly. Logic. Acceptable. Alternative proposal. A cultural exchange, Sarah said, the idea forming as she spoke. Let us show you why our individuality is a strength, not a weakness. In return, we can learn about your unity. The bridge crew held their breath as the Nexus processed this suggestion. The being's surface rippled with complex patterns that the computer couldn't translate. Unprecedented, it finally responded. Dangerous. Yet, potential exists. You will come aboard. Rodriguez jumped to his feet. Commander, that's against every first contact protocol we have. Your subordinate unit shows concern, the Nexus observed. Individual attachments. Inefficient, yet intriguing. Sarah turned to her crew, seeing the worry in their eyes. They'd fought impossible odds together, and now she was considering walking into the unknown alone. Sometimes protocols need to be broken, she said, addressing both her crew and the Nexus. I'll come aboard, but with conditions. My ship remains intact, my crew unharmed, and I maintain communication with them. The Nexus's form swirled faster. Acceptable. Trust requires risk. We will risk allowing your ship to maintain position. You will risk entering our collective. Commander, Watson stepped forward, her voice low. Their biomechanical nature. There's no telling what exposure to their environment might do to human physiology. Sarah nodded. Have the medical bay prepare a full containment suit. And Dr. Watson, keep studying those probe readings. If something goes wrong, your research might be our only advantage. The next hour was a blur of preparation. As Sarah donned the containment suit, she recorded what might be her final log entry. Earth Command will undoubtedly question my decision to board an alien vessel without authorization. But in the face of technology that could easily destroy us, our greatest weapon isn't our shields or our tactics. It's our ability to reach out, to try understanding what we fear. If this goes wrong, well, at least we tried something new. Standing in the Artemis's airlock, Sarah checked her suit's seals one final time. The Nexus had extended what appeared to be a biological boarding tube, its walls pulsing with the same rhythms as their ship. "Rodriguez, you have command," she said over the comm. "If anything happens to me, get the ship and that probe data back to Earth. Watson, keep monitoring everything. The more we learn, the better our chances." As the airlock cycled and Sarah stepped into the alien boarding tube, she felt the subtle vibrations through her boots. The walls around her seemed alive, which, she reminded herself, they'd probably were. Individual Sarah Chen approaches. The Nexus's voice resonated through the tube. "Prepare for integration experience." Sarah took a deep breath inside her suit. She was about to become the first human to board a Nexus vessel, assuming they were really vessels and not living beings themselves. Every step could bring revelation or disaster. But that, she reflected, was how humanity had always progressed, one uncertain step at a time, driven by equal parts curiosity and courage. As the tube's end approached, revealing a chamber that defied conventional geometry, Sarah Chen prepared herself to either make history or become a cautionary tale in Earth's archives. Either way, she was about to learn just how far the differences between their species truly went. The chamber Sarah entered defied standard physics. Surfaces flowed into each other in impossible ways, organic technology pulsing with internal light. Her suit's sensors struggled to categorize the environment, showing readings that fluctuated between biological and mechanical. "Your protective barrier is unnecessary." The Nexus's voice resonated through the chamber. "Our environment is compatible with your biology." "I'll keep it on for now," Sarah replied diplomatically. Trust builds slowly. The air around her shimmered, condensing into the same shifting form she'd seen on the view screen. "Your caution is logical. Come, we will show you understanding." As they moved through the ship, or organism, Sarah wasn't quite sure which term fit better. She noticed patterns in the flowing walls that reminded her of neural networks. "Your entire ship is conscious, isn't it?" Ship, crew, one entity, no separation. The Nexus's form rippled. "Your concept of individual vessels, individual crews, inefficient. Unity brings strength. Yet our individuality let us surprise you," Sarah pointed out. "Different doesn't always mean inefficient." The Nexus paused, its form swirling thoughtfully. "Truth. Your methods, unexpected. Explain." Sarah considered how to describe something as fundamental as individual thought to a collective consciousness. Each human thinks differently, sees problems differently. When we work together, we combine these different perspectives. It makes us adaptable. "Show us," the Nexus demanded. The chamber around them shifted, walls becoming transparent to reveal the stars. A holographic display materialized, showing their earlier battle from the Nexus perspective. "Your tactical response. Unconventional. Impossible to predict." "Why?" "Because I didn't follow standard protocol," Sarah explained. "I combined scientific knowledge about biological systems with engineering principles about energy conversion. No other commander might have made that same connection in that moment. That's the strength of individual thinking." The Nexus's form condensed, then expanded rapidly. "Inefficient, dangerous, yet effective. We have encountered many species. All fell before our unity. Until you." The display changed, showing other battles. Sarah watched in horror as vast fleets were systematically destroyed by Nexus vessels. "Why do you do this? Why attack other civilizations?" "Protection," the Nexus replied. "All life seeks dominance. Individual species spread, consume, destroy. Unity brings order, safety. You attack others because you fear they'll attack you first," Sarah realized. "But has any species ever actually threatened you?" The Nexus went still, its surface patterns freezing momentarily. "Irrelevant. Potential exists. Prevention necessary." "That's not protection," Sarah argued. "It's paranoia. And it's lonely." The word seemed to affect the Nexus deeply. Its form rippled violently, and the chamber's lights flickered. Lonely, concept unclear. We are never alone. Always connected. Unity. But no diversity. No exchange of new ideas. No growth. Sarah took a calculated risk and reached out, touching the Nexus's shifting surface with her gloved hand. "Isn't that why you're really talking to me? Because we showed you something new." The contact sent readings off the scale on her suit's sensors. The Nexus's form flowed around her hand, not aggressive but curious. "Your thoughts, individual, yet coherent. Your emotions, strong, different. How do you maintain unity without connection?" "We choose it," Sarah said simply. "Every human connection is a choice. Every cooperation is voluntary. It makes our unity stronger because we actively work for it." The chamber filled with swirling patterns as the Nexus processed this concept. Choice, inefficient, dangerous, yet fascinating. "Show us more." "Let me remove my helmet," Sarah offered. "Show you that I choose to trust." "Risk," the Nexus observed. "Why?" "Because understanding requires vulnerability. Sometimes you have to risk to build something new." After a moment's hesitation, Sarah disengaged her helmet seals. The chamber's air was cool and carried a slight metallic taste, but her suit's readings showed no toxins. She took a deep breath, meeting the Nexus's gaze directly. "Your species is paradoxical," the Nexus stated. "Individual yet united. Weak yet strong. Divided yet cooperative. I find this disturbing. Fascinating." Sarah noticed the shift from we to I, but chose not to comment on it. "Perhaps that's why we surprised you. We're not just one thing. We contain contradictions, and that makes us adaptable." The Nexus's form began to separate into multiple smaller entities, each slightly different in pattern and movement. "Your presence affects our unity. Creates disturbance. Individual thoughts emerge. Dangerous. Exhilarating. That's what real growth feels like," Sarah said softly. "It's always a little dangerous, always a little uncomfortable, but it's how we become more than what we were." As the Nexus continued to experiment with separate forms, Sarah realized she was witnessing something unprecedented, the first stirrings of individuality in a purely collective consciousness. The implications were staggering, both for the Nexus and for humanity's future in the galaxy. The question was, would this lead to understanding, or would the Nexus see these changes as a threat to be eliminated? The chamber erupted in chaos as the Nexus's fragmenting consciousness manifested physically. Different forms split and merged, their patterns increasingly discordant. Sarah watched in fascination and growing concern as the unified being she'd been communicating with struggled with its emerging individuality. Too much. Multiple voices resonated through the chamber. Division spreads. Unity fragmenting. Must. Restore. Order. Sarah's suit sensors detected massive energy fluctuations throughout the ship. "Rodriguez," she called through her comm. "Status report." "Commander, their ship is showing signs of extreme instability. Energy signatures are all over the place. Whatever's happening in there." "Containment required." The Nexus voices overlapped. "Threat must be eliminated. Unity must prevail." The chamber's walls began to pulse with angry red light. Sarah felt the subtle shift in atmosphere. From curiosity to fear, from exploration to defensive reaction. She recognized the dangerous precipice they stood upon. "Stop," she commanded, her voice cutting through the cacophony. "You're afraid of change, but this reaction proves something crucial. You're already more individual than you realize." The shifting forms paused momentarily. "Explain," several voices demanded in imperfect unison. "Fear is an individual response." Sarah pressed her advantage. "A collective doesn't feel fear. It processes threat assessment logically. You're feeling fear because you're already evolving." The fragments swirled around her, their patterns reflecting confusion and conflict. Evolution threatens unity. Unity is survival. Unity doesn't have to mean uniformity, Sarah argued. Look at my ship, my crew. We maintain our individuality while working as one. Different parts of the same whole. Through her comm, she heard Dr. Watson's excited voice. Commander, the probe's readings are showing unprecedented changes in their biomechanical structure. The individual components are developing distinct patterns while maintaining basic connectivity, like neurons in a brain. Sarah realized, each unique but part of a greater whole. That's what you could become. Not a single consciousness suppressing all variants, but a network of individual thoughts working in harmony. The chamber's light shifted again, blues and greens replacing the threatening red. The Nexus fragments began to move more purposefully, their chaos resolving into complex but ordered patterns. Dangerous path. One voice emerged stronger than the others. Unknown territory. All growth is dangerous, Sarah responded. But staying static is even more dangerous. You've seen how the universe is filled with change and diversity. Fighting that truth almost led you to destroy countless civilizations. The fragments conversed in patterns of light and energy that Sarah's translator couldn't process. She waited, knowing this moment would determine not just her fate, but potentially the course of interstellar relations for centuries to come. Finally, the fragments reformed into a single entity, but different from before. Instead of the uniform shifting mass, it now displayed distinct regions that maintained their own patterns while contributing to the whole. We choose change, the Nexus announced, its voice now a harmony of distinct tones. But require guidance. Your species understands balance between one and many. Will you teach? Sarah felt the weight of the moment. This isn't a decision I can make alone. This would require agreement from Earth's governments, careful diplomatic consideration. Yet you alone chose to remove your helmet, the Nexus observed. Individual choice serving collective good. This is what we must learn. Commander, Rodriguez's voice came through her comm. We're detecting multiple ships entering the system. Earth Defense Force responded to our distress call. Sarah heard the familiar hum of weapons powering up, both from the approaching Earth fleet and the Nexus vessel. Decades of mistrust and fear hung in the balance, waiting to explode into violence. This is our first test, she said firmly. Both sides must choose trust over fear. Will you help me prevent this war? The Nexus's form shifted, now resembling a constellation of interconnected stars. Individual choice. Collective consequence. We understand. Command us. Sarah opened a channel to the approaching fleet. This is Commander Chen. Hold your fire and maintain distance. We are engaged in diplomatic contact with a new species. I repeat, hold your fire. As she began the delicate task of preventing an interstellar war while fostering an unprecedented cultural exchange, Sarah reflected that this was humanity's true strength, not just their ability to fight when necessary, but their capacity to build bridges between seemingly incompatible worlds. The next few hours would determine whether two fundamentally different forms of consciousness could find common ground. The fate of both species hung on their ability to embrace change while maintaining their essential natures. The greatest adventure in human history was just beginning. The following weeks transformed human understanding of their place in the cosmos. The Artemis became the center of unprecedented diplomatic negotiations, with Sarah Chen serving as the bridge between two fundamentally different forms of consciousness. The neural interface is ready, Commander, Dr. Watson announced, adjusting the delicate equipment in the ship's newly modified conference room. Though I still have reservations about this approach. Sarah understood the scientists' concerns. They were about to attempt something unprecedented. A controlled neural link between a human consciousness and the evolved Nexus collective. Sometimes the greatest discoveries require the greatest risks, Sarah replied, settling into the interface chair. The Nexus representative, now calling itself First Symphony, flowed into the chamber, its form a harmonious blend of distinct patterns. Your species continues to surprise, First Symphony observed. Most would fear such connection. Fear doesn't preclude courage, Sarah responded as Watson attached the neural sensors. Besides, you took the first risk by choosing change over conflict. The interface activated, and Sarah's consciousness expanded. It wasn't the overwhelming unity of the original Nexus, but rather a vast symphony of distinct voices and thoughts, each maintaining its individuality while contributing to a greater harmony. Through the connection, she experienced the Nexus's transformation. What had begun as a frightening fragmentation had evolved into something new, a collective that celebrated difference rather than suppressing it. Individual nodes of consciousness formed and reformed, sharing thoughts and experiences while maintaining their unique perspectives. Remarkable, Watson breathed, monitoring the readings. Their entire civilization is reorganizing itself, using our neural patterns as a template. It's like watching the evolution of consciousness in real time. The Nexus shared its history through the interface, their original fear of diversity that had driven them to enforce unity throughout their territory, the loneliness they hadn't recognized until encountering human individuality, and their growing understanding that true strength came from the harmony of different voices rather than the suppression of variance. Your civilization has given us new purpose, First Symphony communicated. We will no longer seek to enforce unity. Instead, we will explore the infinite variations of consciousness throughout the galaxy. Sarah saw visions of the future through the interface. Human and Nexus ships exploring together, each species learning from the other's strengths. The Nexus's biomechanical technology combined with human creativity and adaptability could open up possibilities neither species had imagined alone. Earth Defense Command has approved the preliminary cultural exchange protocol, Rodriguez reported as Sarah disconnected from the interface. They're calling it the Symphony Initiative. Sarah smiled at the name. Appropriate. We're all learning to play different parts in the same great composition. The Nexus vessel, which they now understood was as much a living city as a ship, had become a hub of scientific and cultural exchange. Human scientists worked alongside Nexus consciousness nodes, each bringing their unique perspectives to shared challenges. The question remains, First Symphony observed, how will other species react to our transformation? Not all will welcome change. That's why we'll face it together, Sarah replied. Humanity knows something about being underestimated. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from being perpetually undervalued. The Artemis's long-range sensors detected more Earth ships arriving. Not warships this time, but research vessels and diplomatic craft. Humanity's first steps into a much larger universe had begun. Commander, Watson called from her station. You should see this. She brought up a display showing the Nexus vessel's structure. Their biomechanical matrix isn't just accommodating human presence anymore. It's evolving to facilitate it. They're literally building bridges between our species at the cellular level. Sarah watched the display with wonder. Life finds a way, she murmured. Not just to survive, but to connect. First Symphony's form rippled with what Sarah now recognized as their equivalent of amusement. We begin to understand why your stories so often speak of hope. The future is uncertain, yet you embrace it. That's the human way, Sarah responded. We face the unknown not because we're fearless, but because we believe the potential rewards outweigh the risks. As she looked out at the stars through the Artemis's viewport, Sarah Chen reflected on how far they'd come from that first desperate confrontation. Humanity had proven itself not through superior firepower or technology, but through their capacity to reach across the gulf of consciousness itself and forge connections where none seemed possible. The Nexus had sought perfect unity and found instead the strength of harmony. Humanity had faced a superior force and discovered not an enemy but a partner in exploration. Together, they would reshape the galaxy's understanding of consciousness, community, and cooperation. First Symphony, Sarah asked, are you ready to begin our first joint mission? The Nexus consciousness hummed with anticipation. We are many, yet one. Different, yet united. We go forward together into uncertainty, carrying hope. The Artemis and the Nexus vessel moved in perfect coordination, heading toward unexplored space. Behind them, Earth prepared for a new age of discovery and cooperation. Before them lay infinite possibilities, waiting to be explored by minds that had learned to bridge the gap between unity and individuality. Humanity had defended itself not with weapons, but with understanding. They had achieved victory not through destruction, but through connection. And in doing so, they had proven that the greatest power in the universe wasn't force or technology, but the courage to reach across differences and forge something new. The adventure was just beginning.